Hi, Year Fives, and welcome to your first English remote session. And in this unit, we are going to start off with the story of Beowulf. Now, Beowulf is an Anglo-Saxon poem, and by the end of this week, by Friday, you will be writing your own description of Grendel in the story of Beowulf. So let's find out a little bit more about Beowulf and its origins. So Beowulf is one of the most important texts in Old English and is believed to date from somewhere between 975 AD and 1025, around the time of Alfred the Great. The author is unknown. The poem consists of 3,182 lines and exists in a single copy housed in the British Museum. The events of the poem are set in Scandinavia. Hrothgar, king of the Danes, builds a mead hall called Heorot, but comes under attack from a monster called Grendel. Grendel terrorizes the Danes for 12 long years. So if we go back to our learning our learning of Anglo-Saxon settlements, mead halls were both important to both Anglo-Saxons and Vikings. This is where the villagers would meet, and most importantly, legends were told at this place, usually in the form of long and descriptive poems about heroes and monsters. So the Anglo-Saxons would gather round, and Beowulf would probably be one of the tales or legends recited by the poets. So today you are going to be looking at the author's use of language to create effect, and looking at particularly in the words that the author's choice of words and the effect that this has on our imagination and on your visualization of the text. And the text that you're going to be looking at is Michael Morpurgo's version of Beowulf. So let's have a little think about the front cover. And I would like you to make a prediction. So you are going to use these sentence starters here to write down any predictions or questions that you may have about the story of Beowulf. Do that now on your piece of paper. Okay, and now we're going to have a look at the blurb. And you can see the blurb is an extract taken from the story. And let's have a little listen to it. So, hear and listen well, and I will tell you a tale that has been told for 1,000 years and more. It may be an old story, yet it troubles and terrifies us, now as much as it ever did, for we still fear the evil that stalks out there in the darkness and beyond. So you can see that Michael Morpurgo has used the word stalk. And if I think of stalk, of the word stalk, it makes me think of an animal hunting its prey. An animal will stalk after its prey. So that's a good word choice because it's made me imagine an animal or something, a predator hunting its prey. So it's something which is dangerous, isn't it? And he's also used the word the evil that stalks. And that's quite good as well because he's left it quite open and vague. And so it's allowed us to let our imaginations run and to imagine all sorts of kind of monsters or creatures that may stalk out there in the darkness. So there's two effective words there that he has used to help engage us into the story. So we are going to watch an animation of Beowulf now, so you can get a little bit more of the beginning part of the story. And as you are watching, I would like you to write the answers to the following questions. So here are the questions. Where does the story take place? What kind of king is Hrothgar? Why does he decide to build the mead hall, Heorot? Who is Grendel? And does the story meet your predictions? So I'd like you to write those questions down on a piece of paper. And I'm going to show you the animation. Don't forget that you can pause the video as you are writing your answer down.
Many years ago, in the land of Denmark, Lord Hrothgar was king. Hrothgar was rich and powerful, and he was a good ruler who cared for his people. One day he announced,
"I'm going to build a great hall where all my people can meet together to eat and drink and be happy. Work will start immediately."
For 2 years, Hrothgar's builders worked to complete the hall, and when it was finished, everyone agreed that it was the biggest and most beautiful building they had ever seen.
"Today I name this great hall Heorot. Tonight there will be a feast. It will be the first of many to be held in our fine new building. All are welcome."
Heorot was full that night. The people ate and drank. They told stories, they sang and they laughed and they were happy. But not everyone in Denmark was happy that night. Out on the dark moors, a creature was slowly moving towards Heorot. A creature full of hatred. A monster driven by evil. Grendel.
"Listen to the humans. When I hear the humans laughing, I want to crush their bones. They won't be laughing soon. Grendel is coming. Grendel will stop the laughing."
Inside Heorot, everything became quiet as the people slept. Grendel stood outside the great hall and sniffed the air. Then he lifted his huge fist and smashed the great door to pieces. And the next moment, he was inside.
"Tell me the worst. How many?" "My lord." "How many has the creature killed?" 30, my lord." 30. "Yes, my lord." "Now it has attacked once, it is sure to return. Make ready for tonight. Build barricades and strengthen the great door. Tell all our thanes to sharpen their swords and dress themselves in armor. When the monster returns, we will be ready."
Hrothgar was right. That night, Grendel did return. The fighting men of Heorot could hear the monster as he came closer and closer. There was a moment of silence. Then suddenly, the great door was once again smashed to pieces. The Danes fought bravely, but their swords and spears could not pierce Grendel's skin.
"Fools! I am too strong for you. But this is just the start. I will attack again and again."
Right, so if we go back to the questions, where does the story take place? Well, the story takes place in Denmark, doesn't it? They are the Danes. The story takes place in Denmark. What kind of king is Hrothgar? So he's a kind king, isn't he? He's a generous king. He's built the mead hall in celebration of the Danes' good luck and prosperity. So he is a kind and generous king, isn't he? And why does he decide to build the mead hall? Well, he's building it as a celebration of his people, and so that people can gather together. Who is Grendel? Well, Grendel is the terrifying monster, isn't he? The one that is stalking and the evil, the one that's stalking in the darkness. So Grendel is the creature or monster. Okay, lovely. And this is the character that we are going to be focusing on. So we're going to zoom in on Michael Morpurgo's description of Grendel. And as we read through the description of Grendel, you will need to write notes in the following areas. So on a piece of paper, you are going to write the following. Words, phrases to describe appearance, effects on others, personality and attitude, and movements. And I would make titles like that. And as I am reading through the description, you are then going to take down some notes and put it under the titles. So let's have a look at the first part. He heard that wondrous story of God's good creation, and because it was good, it was hateful to his ears. He heard the sweet music of the harp, and afterwards the joyous laughter echoing through the hall as the mead hall was passed around. Nothing had ever so enraged this beast as night after night he had to listen to all this happiness and harmony. So if I went back to my notes here, his personality and attitude, one of the things I could note down is that he hates, Grendel hates happiness and music. So that's his personality and attitude, isn't it? And I've got that information from page 18. Nothing had so enraged this beast as night after night he had to listen to all this happiness and harmony. It was more than his evil heart could bear. The night Grendel struck was the darkest night of all. He waited until Hrothgar had gone to his bed, until only the lords who nightly guarded Heorot were left. They were fast asleep when he pounced. He was upon them so suddenly and with such violence and fury that none could escape the terrible slaughter. 30 lords he murdered in his bloodlust, as savage and swift in his death-dealing as a maddened fox in a chicken hut. He left not one of them alive, but carried them off home to his lair to feast on their blooded corpses at his leisure. Only when day broke did Hrothgar and his warriors discover the dreadful evidence of the holocaust at Heorot. Gone now were the laughter and the music. Hrothgar sat silent in his grief and despair. His warriors too mourned and lamented the loss of their friends and brothers in arms. All were stunned at the merciless cruelty of this fatal fiend of the darkness, but the horrors were not yet over. For the next night Grendel came again, stalking over the foggy moors and down through the forest towards Heorot. The warriors had barricaded themselves in this time, and believed they must be safe. They could not have known that against this hellish monster all such defences would be useless. In a frenzy of hate, Grendel burst in and slaughtered everyone he found there, gorging himself at will. He spared no one. From that night on, no one, not even Hrothgar, dared sleep again in Heorot, and so the great mead hall stood empty, and stayed empty. Grendel the monster now ruled in Denmark, a rule of terror that haunted Hrothgar and all his people, wherever they lived, men, women, and children alike. For 12 long winters, Grendel warred unceasingly on the Danes, picking his blood victims at random, the innocent and the sick too, children and newborn babes. He was utterly without mercy. Again and again he came to his killing ground, always unseen in the black of night. No plan Hrothgar and the council Thanes devised could protect them from his fury, no prayers to the Almighty, no sacrifices to ancient heathen gods. Anywhere he struck, any farmstead, any cottage, anywhere and everywhere, nothing could put an end to these endless terror raids. A great and terrible grief darkened the land, banishing all happiness, all hope. Even the noble Hrothgar sat sunk in sorrow. Deep in his despair, the Danish king could see no reprieve from this hideous nightmare visited so often upon his people by this fearful monster. Now, the story of this dreadful tragedy, of the nightly suffering Hrothgar and his people were enduring, had spread far and wide. They had heard about it too across the water in the land of King Hygelac of the Geats, for a long time faithful allies of the Danish kingdom. But only one of them, the greatest and bravest of all princes, Beowulf as he was called, decided this evil beast of the night must be punished for all his wrongdoing, that Heorot must be cleansed of this wickedness, and Hrothgar and his people saved at last, even if Beowulf had to give his own life to achieve it. So you may have found made some of the following notes under these headings. And remember, this language can be used later on in your own description of Grendel, which you will do on Friday. So I got to describe his appearance, I've got him as a ruler of terror and a hellish monster.